A revolutionary. Say whoa. Trap revolutionary. Got the wave of too scary. Doing this thing like Malcolm ain't by any means necessary. We ain't got it by no one seen hand. We got the master plan. Get the move. Go on, y'all. Y'all want to do this video real quick. I had actually somebody sent me some on TikTok. It was actually for something else. The young brother that, and the Don Lemon had this on his show as well, that showed a young brother that he was with his white friends and they basically left him to where he was sitting on kind of like the edge of a riverbank, you know. He told him he couldn't swim.
You can swim down wherever you fucking retard. I think I'm gonna stay here. Bro! How am I gonna get you back home? You don't think Mama Marquise is gonna be worried? Hey, your mom? My mom's name. My dad's your mom is always worried about you. My dad's in prison. I think that's why. Your dad's in prison himself. I'm looking at you. Bro, just don't get a kayak. You have a fucking life jacket on, Marquise.
I'll just wait.
Bro, you have a life jacket.
Bro, I'm black. It doesn't matter. It's not gonna save me.
Bro, yes it does.
Bro, I'll just find a way. Hey.
Hi.
Yeah, they think I'm about to swim back, but I can't swim.
Bro, you have a life jacket.
I'm gonna die.
I'm standing right
Hold
now.
on.
So I can just like hold on to the back of the boat.
You can handle right here if you want.
Yeah, I might drown.
You won't drown.
You won't
I'm gonna try
drown.
to get over there.
You're not gonna drown. I promise you won't drown.
There you go.
Thank you.
What's your name?
Swim. They wanted him to swim to them. He had a life jacket on, but he said, hey man, I can't swim. You know what I'm saying? He was like, I'm not coming back with y'all. So it was a family, you know, white family ended up near there. I guess they were kayaking or whatever. They're basically paddling down the river. Wasn't a strong current, so they were able to paddle to him, you know, get him to where he could basically tug along with them on the back of their, I guess they're not canoes, but they were paddling kind of like platform canoe, maybe canoes or whatever you want to call it. Platform, small platform boats or whatever, canoes. And they basically let him tug along kind of where he was still in the water, but his life jacket was holding him up. And they basically, you know, pulled him along to where his white friends were. So, you know, they're just making fun of him, all type of noises, like, you know, monkey noises, you know, tell him he should be able to swim. He was telling him, hey man, I can't swim. I really can't swim, you know, but, you know, just make that, you know, just like I was gonna make a video on that, but, and I put that in here to provide context because, like I said, Don Lemon put that in his show about Nolan Wells, like how, you know, young black men, it just happens to be a pattern. You hang around all white friends and they don't understand, in some senses, they don't understand you and the intricacies of you, you know, as a young black man, you know what I'm saying? Some of the issues you may face as a young black man, right? You know, he actually told him, like, hey man, my mother don't know how to swim, my dad's in prison. I'm like, damn man, I kind of wish he wouldn't have said that, but it's, you know, just is what it is, right? So, you know, in thinking about that, you know, it's sad, you know, that it's his reality and also his friends like making fun of him, you know, expecting him to know, you know, basically know how to swim. Some people didn't get taught to swim. You know, some of us were fortunate to learn how to swim at a young age, but some people they never got a chance to learn how to swim. But you know, in saying that, the video somebody sent me that video, but before that, the video that popped up was that black people are being lynched, you know, all around the country.
Black people are being lynched all around the country right now. They are being found hanging from trees in public spaces. They're also going missing. They're also being murdered in lots of other ways as well. And I can assure you there is no debate here. No debate whatsoever. Black people do not hang themselves from trees in public. That is not a debate. That is not the world we live in. Don't even try. Now, instead of giving high-level details about all of the people and all of the situations, I recommend, honestly, just leave this video if you feel like it and go to Black creators that are talking about it. They're going to have way better insight on this situation than I am. However, there are things that I can talk about as a white human being on the internet, and that's the privilege that I have when I walk into a room or I enter a situation that Black people simply don't have. And I can use that privilege to support the Black community, and so can you. So if you look like me, let's have a conversation real quick.
World, right? New incidents of people being hung. So I reported on Tonea Williams down in Florida, but you did have a young brother named Demartravion Reed in Mississippi. He went to Delta State University. So they found him hanging on the campus at Delta State University in Mississippi. You know what I'm saying? Like, and then ruled it after like 20, 40, 48 hours, ruled it a suicide. You know, when Black people don't climb most of the time, and that's what I said in the video about Tonea Williams, Black women don't climb trees and then hang themselves. Most Black people don't use that method to commit suicide. Another brother down in Alabama, and his name was Denorris Richardson. You know what I'm saying? He's 39 years old. And the fact is, he had just filed a federal complaint against the police in Mississippi where he was, Alabama where he was, in regards to police, corruption of police brutality. I guess them using, let me see, basically a brutality and harassment, in Mississippi. So, in next thing you know, they found him hung, like shortly after that. You know what I'm saying? 39-year-old, your Black father and youth sports coach was found hanging from a carport beam at an abandoned home in Colbert County. So, I guess he filed a federal lawsuit against the police in Colbert County, in Alabama. And they found him hanging. They say it launched, FBI investigation, but they, like I said, ruling his just suicide, and the NAACP, then his family contested that, like, no. And then the NAACP got involved, or whatever, in the matter. With the young brother, Demartravion Reed, being Crump got involved, in that regard, and they was contesting the fact that, they didn't, believe it was suicide. His family and community members, they didn't believe it was suicide. So, I just had to report on that because, the pattern, that's what's going on. It's a pattern, of this going on, and then I have to, and I know that we, as a people we really have to forge a deeper sense of community, in this sense, to stop this from happening. It can't be to where we just it's just a minor incident or something that's just, how can you say, just a coincidence. It's just coincidental. It just happened, we really need to find out if this is if it's a reinstitution of a Ku Klux Klan activity or, some form of, hate crime or whatever that's being, engendered or, like I said, in a sense of being revisited, by certain groups. We really need to have a greater sense of community, I would say, in that sense. Cause I just, like I said, Black people just don't use that method and I hate to say it, most black people don't commit suicide, and then most of the time, if we do, even if the cold reality is, if we did commit suicide, it wouldn't be by hanging ourselves. We just that's something we don't really, we don't, that because of the particular, how can I say it, the particular stigma around that, right? The particular, negative impact that hanging has had upon us, as well as that negative memory, the impactful, like just all the negativity and negative impact, visual, memories of it, hearing about it, listening to it, all of the things surrounding that, that particular circumstance, that particular situation, that particular method of brutalizing, our people is just something that we don't do, so that's why I said, like, yeah, no one is using that to, it's terror, that's basically what it is, so it's why we don't necessarily use that. It's just like, no, we're not hanging ourselves by a method that is, historically traumatic, for our people, So, that's kind of just in us. Like we not doing that, Even if we did commit suicide, that's why I said it looks like it's problematic of a greater problem. It's not coincidental, And then, like I said, you had Demartravion, Demartravion Reed, and that happened in 2025 at Delta State University. What they say, they found him hanging from a tree on campus. Then the brother Denorris Richardson in Alabama. So Demartravion, he was 21. The brother Denorris was 39. I say in Alabama, found him hanging from a carport. Colbert, abandoned home, Colbert County. So it's like, it's unreal. That's not even reasonable, when you think about it. Then this with Tonea Williams, it occurred this year, found her hanging, or wherever in Florida. So, it's just like what's really going on. That's why I said we gotta have a greater sense of community, like really, man, like now, and like me being on here informing our people, like, hey, watch out. You might not want to, in certain places, you might not want to be by yourself, or watch yourself, at all times, coming and going, so, I would say that. But yeah, man, like I would say, man, we really have to, make sure we protect ourselves, protect our communities, make sure that, and people that are speaking up, make sure they protect it too. Find a way to protect them, so no harm will come to them. Like, we really need to organize in that sense, and I even say it as well. Most of the time, man, what happens to us is because we're, when certain instances happen, I'm talking about all the way from us being brutalized, or you say police brutality, whatever, being, overly incarcerated, in certain instances where even when something happens to our children, some with our children, being kidnapped or whatever, just it's a number of things that happen within the Black community. So I said that we're being out organized, So even in the sense, if I say like kids, some harm coming to our children, You know, even like with Nolan Wells, you know, that whole issue. And it's unfortunate that, you know, he didn't realize who his friends really were, you know, hanging with, you know, people that really, you know, did not really care in that sense, you know. And that's the issue, you know, because even that's, I mean, you can look at it as an organization, but you can also look at it in the sense that he really didn't know who his true friends were. You know what I'm saying? But in the sense of organization, I would say, man, you cannot let, in certain instances, and this is why I'm saying, you know, I'm kind of like referring back to the video about the young brother. In certain instances, you may not want to hang with where organization-wise, that's why I say organization, where you have no one that looks like you, that may help you defend yourself if something happens, or they may care about you a little more if something happens to you. You know what I'm saying? Because most time we bond with each other because we look like each other, we come from the same cultural background, have the same similarities in a sense. So, and even in that sense, you know, it is a matter of organization in that sense. And others would be, you know, like, you know, children in our community coming home from school. You know, you have seeing children straggling, coming home from school, may not be, you know, with the bunch, with the group. Like, man, you might need to tell them to get on home. You know, don't be straggling around here. Where they live at, man, go on, you know, make sure you get to the house. You know, go straight home. Don't be just straggling in these streets, because you never know who may be out here trying to, you know, mess with you. You know, you got weirdos running around. And even look in your community, look for these particular cars that you don't notice. Maybe weirdos in your community that you just don't know about. You know, running around. You know, coming into the community. You know what I'm saying? Unnoticed, unchecked. You know, in even sense, like I said, mass incarceration. That's the issue of, and that's political as well. Judicial system. You know, voting in certain sheriffs, judges, and prosecutors. Like, yeah, you know, so. You know, even in that sense, we get out organized, because them prosecutors is prosecuting people, and they tend to be, you know, predominantly white in certain areas. You know, so we're getting out organized in that sense. You know, most time they get a black person in front of them, they're gonna send them on down, you know, to prison. You know, like did Carmelo Anthony. You know, pretty much railroaded him. You know what I'm saying? You know, so. Yeah, it's, you know, it's a number of issues that are going on that, you know, that we need to, that we have to correct. Yeah, as I said, and, you know, yeah, in the sense that in that aspect, you know, but we have to, you know, organize and stay on code about what we're about, you know, and I would say that, you know, that's what we have to do, you know, down to from everything. Like I said, you know, mass incarceration, you know, getting brutalized, you know, by police and even other, you know, particular institutions. You know, we have to form some form of greater sense of community, man, to where it's throughout the United States. We watching ourselves, we protecting ourselves. But anyway, man, I'm gonna get up out here, man. I just want to say that. I hope y'all out there doing well, living life full of love and happiness. Doing great, you know, and strive for greatness every day. You know, like I said, we can agree, you know, or disagree. We disagree, we can hash it out. You know, I'm just ask y'all to be respectful and be respectful towards y'all. So next one, y'all. Love y'all. All right, y'all.
Fuck it, go ahead and blow off the dough. Step through the maze, man, and became amazing. About to rewrite history and change the page in a crooked book that never told us the true story. Like how we were kings and queens before the slave story, before the killing, stealing, and drug dealing on some real shit. We ran the world.